So it's been a whole year after my second hair transplant, and I think this is the perfect time to see the full result and also to analyze my transplant. Specifically what I do like and what I do not like about my transplant. Believe it or not, hair transplants are not perfect.
Hair transplants are not perfect.
And there are a few things that I'm not a big fan. If you came across this channel for the first time, my name is Rolandas. I had 2 hair transplants, 6,540 grafts altogether, FE. I was Norwood 5A, meaning almost nothing on top, and right now I'm able to rock a full looking head of hair, as you can see right now. I've created a ton of educational videos as well as documenting my whole journey from A to Z basically on this channel. So make sure to subscribe because you're gonna be blown away by the quality and transparency of my content. Also, thank you Manuel for sponsoring this video, but more on them later. So let's start from the most important thing. What I do like about my transplant. And the obvious thing would be that I do have hair right now. I've got something to play with, to style, to grow long, to do basically whatever I want. My new hairline framed my face so well to the point that most people don't even realize I've got hair loss, let alone, that I have a transplant. This is how natural it looks. I had quite a few interactions, between people over these months that didn't know me, before that, and whenever I tell them that, listen, I had a transplant, they look at my hair like, what? And why does it look like I have hair loss? Because my transplant looks natural. What does it mean natural? Well, let's start from correct implantation angles. In my opinion, this is amongst the most important factors when you're looking at the, transplants to see whether it's a transplant or not, basically. Let's start from the hairline. If you're looking at the implantation patterns, the hair are implanted really flat. They're not sticking up 90 degrees. They're really, really flat to the skin. This is how hair grows in a person with no male pattern baldness, with no hair loss. And if you zoom in, this is basically my picture of before my second transplant. So this is the result of the first one, and we can clearly see each individual hair in a pretty good quality, to be honest, which is, by the way, not everyone is transparent like me. So if you appreciate that, hit that like button. And you can see singles in the very front, and the most important, the angles. Like, look how flat they are, and they each following specific direction, moving from left to right, they changing, the direction of the growth. Specifically looking closer at this picture, of course, it's a little bit blurry, but we still are able to see my native hair like a kind of growth angles. The hairs are kind of growing like this direction, but more to the left. Going to the middle is still kind of focusing to the left. So mid-scalp, completely mid part of my head is still growing kind of down and a little bit to the left. And somewhere at this point, it starts to grow completely like straight, still flat, but like a kind of straight angle. And going slowly now from here to the right, it kind of starts to curve a little bit towards the right section. Do you see what I mean? And when we compare this to the implantation pattern of the first transplant, it kind of looks pretty much similar. Look here, it goes kind of down, but more to the left, and it's kind of follows this pattern here, this like a flow all the way towards the hairline. Like, the more you're moving to the left and bottom, the more kind of flows to that side. And also looking at the pictures 2 weeks after my second hair transplant, specifically from the side view, you can clearly see the implantation angles, and they are really, really matching so well. I'm really impressed, to be honest. I'm really happy. That's hence why my result, even with really short hair, looks extremely natural. Just look at that crown, kind of sticking up, and then the more you're going to the front, the more it gets again flat, like I mentioned before. And it's like such a smooth transition here all the way to the hairline that, like, you don't see that one hair is growing like that, another hair is growing like this, and they just overlapping, like, again, we see in really bad places. And thank God I've stabilized my hair loss so it doesn't progress any further. It doesn't look like my crown or lateral humps are, progressing further, they're dropping, although there is a real possibility for the future because I've got really aggressive androgenetic alopecia. I could possibly end up Norwood 6, if I'm not gonna be on the medication. And speaking of stabilizing hair loss, if you're still not treating in any meaningful way your hair loss and you are living in the UK, I suggest to get in touch with Manuel. Manuel's qualified clinicians are able to prescribe you the FDA-approved treatments that actually work for vast majority of men. They are so confident that they are even offering a 180-day money-back guarantee. So it's really a win-win situation. Moreover, Manuel also offering a load of other things that modern men need. Skincare, general health, sexual health, etc. There is also a possibility to get your blood checked with them, if their doctors think it's appropriate. All of these are prescribed online from the comfort of your home with a discreet shipping. So if you are worried others to know what's inside, don't. Look, do you know what's inside here? Ha! I bet you didn't expect that. Go through the link in the description down below and get a 50% discount on your first hair loss treatment order. Start treating your hair loss. The earlier you do, the more hair you will save, so you possibly need less transplants to do in the future. Don't do the same mistake I did. Moving on to my donor area, it actually looks pretty untouched, to be honest. Even after taking 6,540 grafts only from my scalp donor, it still looks pretty good, even with a really short hairstyle. For example, right now I'm rocking, I think it was number 3 guard on the sides and on the back, done by my barber, and actually looks pretty good. You cannot tell at all that there was some surgery, that there was some grafts taken from there. And my transplant in general looks pretty good, even with wet hair. The other day I went out and I didn't take umbrella, so it started raining and, you know, all my hair was basically completely wet, but you know what, it was still looking pretty good, pretty decent. It was actually still holding the style I created, and of course I was really tempted just to try and do a slick back. I think it looks pretty good. What do you think? So this brings me to styles. I've tried so many styles already, with a shorter hair, with a longer hair, and I think so far what I found works best for me, for my kind of lifestyle, is short to medium length, you know, hair on top and pretty short to the sides. This kind of hair length still allows me to pull off certain hairstyles, so I've got the options to style it like left, right, up, down, whatever it is. But it's not too long that causes kind of like inconvenience. Now let's talk about the fun part that most of you probably are looking forward to. What I don't like about my transplant. I know some people are gonna say, wait a second, yeah, you're so happy, you just said so many things, and what the hell, your transplant looks excellent, like one of the best on YouTube, some people say. I do agree. Find me another person who is as transparent as me, presenting a hair transplant in various light conditions and angles. So let's start from the obvious. No hair transplant is perfect.
Rolandas, what do you mean by saying not perfect? Yours looks great.
And what I'm talking about is there is no 100% survival rate of the transplanted hairs, even in the best hands. Generally speaking, if more than 90% of the grafts survive, it's considered a successful transplant. And it just so happened that I've got few weak spots as well. Let's start from the most annoying one, which is the left temple over here. You see, when I'm styling my hair, you can kind of see that this area is weaker. It has less grafts per centimeter square, therefore stands out, especially if I'm doing this kind of hairstyle. I feel like sometimes when I'm styling my hair, this specific area is kind of more difficult to style, only because it's kind of sticking to the certain direction and it's more difficult to lay it the way I want, only because there's only few hairs in there. But in that case, they sometimes start to flare out, just this specific area. As we discussed earlier, the transplanted hair were implanted at really correct angles, and because in this area is very slightly less density, sometimes it gets a little bit like kind of awkward when I'm styling it. My barber said I need to keep this area, kind of this hair, more flat, because this is like their growth angles. But in my opinion, it looks a little bit too high if I start to kind of do, let's say, a side part all the way up here. I feel like my temples could have been just a tiny bit lower, very, very slightly. So this area gonna move a little bit to the left, if it makes sense. And then when I'm gonna do a side part, it's gonna kind of look, I don't know, more balanced, if you can say. Of course, I'm nitpicking. It's definitely not a big deal at all, and most of the time I don't even notice. It's simply because when I'm trying to style this specific area, I'm trying to style it kind of against their growth direction. So they're growing, let's say, this way, and I'm trying to style it up and back. So in the lowest part of the temple, I need to let this hair grow down and leave them alone, basically, and going a little bit, just tiny bit higher, start from this hair to kind of, you know, make it either like a slick back or style like that is going up, because these hair are not that down, that flat, and they're not going to that like towards this temple peak direction as much. Therefore they will keep their shape, you know, with the styling products, etc. This is something I'm still exploring, and if you got any ideas, let me know in the comments down below. What do you think? Another thing I don't like about my transplant are obviously FUE scars. I was expecting them to be a bit smaller and not as wide as they are. And of course, this is not like a mistake or anything, you know, from the like surgical part. It's just my own body healing like that. You know, every single scar I've got on my, you know, on my body, on my hands, even I've got some scars from the childhood on my scalp, on my donor area. They're really, really super white, and they very so slightly like raised and slightly convex. So they stand out a little bit if you like compare my scars to some like average Joe's scars, FUE scars. So of course, as you know, I'm trying to do this experiment, which by the way, I'm like delayed a little bit, a few weeks already, just because I've got other things going on and I simply don't have time to make this video, but I promise it's coming really soon. So stay tuned, make sure to subscribe and don't miss this video. Another weak spot I have is actually in the very center of my hairline. This area looks like very so slightly like thinner, or let's say less grafts per centimeter square than, let's say, just the areas next to it, like on the temples. And I remember before my second transplant, Dr. Vera asked me, okay, what do you want me to do? Which areas you're concerned? Which areas you want me to like improve and everything? And I told him, like, listen, my hairline, absolutely love it. Don't touch it at all. I just want a bit more density. And he did exactly that. He did more density all over and he didn't touch my hairline at all. But after the surgery, I realized, wait a second, there is actually, like, I would like maybe another 10 grafts. 10 grafts or maybe 20 grafts, like somewhere just so in a very frontal, in the middle part over here, just to kind of make it a little bit more denser. I don't know, it's not a big deal, but it's definitely like a little bit weaker spot than other areas next to it. Another thing that is not perfect about my transplant, and you know, whether I like it or not, it's normal and it's happening pretty much for everyone, especially for the cases like mine that are severe bald. When under the very harsh light, certain areas like hairline, they look a little bit thinner, like a little bit kind of see-through. For example, yesterday I went shopping and, you know, my hair, to be honest, was not really, you know, that clean. I washed it like 2 days ago on some styling products from the day before was still there. So it's definitely not the best example, but nonetheless, in certain angle and very harsh light, you can kind of see through. You know what I mean? And this can indicate to someone like me with a sharp eye that this is a transplant. Like I'm always saying to you guys, the transplant is just an illusion of density. And put it simply, even if the hairline has 60 grafts per centimeter square, for example, which mine does, most of these hairs are single grafts, and moreover, they're single finer grafts. So they're thin, they're single, they're not covering as much scalp. So in this place, the density should have been even higher than that. I don't know how high it should be, 80, 90, 100 grafts if it's only singles. But the fact of the matter is that this specific area, if used only singles to make the, you know, the transplant look natural, the downside of it is that it can be just a tiny bit see-through in a certain, like a very harsh light condition. And last but not least, the whorl of the crown. Of course, this area was not transplanted at all, so I cannot exactly say that that's something I don't like about my transplant. However, because of the transplant, this area stands out more. I hope this makes sense. So I've got loads of hair in my whorl, and this is why we decided not to touch it and see what our minoxidil can do if we're gonna thicken them more to the point that I'm gonna be happy. And while it did improve very so slightly after like 1 year of being on oral minoxidil, 2.5 milligram by the way, my transplanted hair just next to it in the mid scalp got really thick. Like, you know, it's transplant. It got so great and dense that you can now see the difference between, you know, the density. Like I said, the crown has lots of hair, but this hair, they miniaturize. They're much thinner than the thick, transplanted, terminal hair. So right now, I think the logical next step would be basically to transplant a little bit of grafts in that area to make it kind of more even, to match the density and the color of the, mid-scalp, which is pretty dark brown basically. And I had a consultation with Dr. Sethi from India, and I actually did a video on it where he said I need probably like maybe 400 grafts tops just in a whorl and like another part of the crown here. And I remember Dr. Vera told me something along those lines as well. And from here I also suggest to check out this video when at 6 months after my second transplant I did a skin fade to expose all my scars, and I started microneedling so you can check how it looked before seeing the results video, which is coming up really soon. Stay tuned.